If you've been paying attention to my series, you would see that I've made a lot of amateur mistakes. There were some really obvious things that were holding me back, and at the same time I was trying to do really competitive lap times. Like a lot of you mentioned, my force feedback was clipping, and it still is a little bit, but I'm trying to balance it in terms of the strength that I feel through the wheel and also the feedback that I get. So it's still clipping, but not clipping as much as before. The other thing that was mentioned in my last video was in regards to the track conditions. My weather was dynamic, so it changed from session to session, so I couldn't have consistent results and consistent data to compare with. Every time that I joined a session, it was different, so there was no point in me trying to figure out why I'm slower or faster if the conditions are changing. So after doing a bit of research, I went back and saw the lap time that I'm comparing myself with, and I was lucky enough to actually record that session, so I know I have the data of those track conditions. So with those conditions, I'm gonna be doing laps and training. Now moving on to the training that I did, you are going to notice that I've increased my brake balance by a lot. There's a reason behind this. I want to see how far I can go with this before I start losing time again, and how much time I'm going to gain if I increase my brake bias, because I've noticed that after doing a couple of laps, I was losing a little bit of time in initial rotation, but then I could gain a bit of speed in the exit because the rear tires had less temperature buildup, so I could push a bit more on acceleration on the exit and the rear tires wouldn't have an issue. Of course, this is still being fine-tuned and I don't know if this is the proper way to go about it, or maybe I should try to switch again to a more rear brake bias, but I haven't really given the chance to play around with more positive brake bias, so more front brakes, so I do want to give this a chance and see how that would look like. The other thing that I also tried to do was to see if that brake bias is also going to help me take some corners with full throttle easier. But yeah, this is mostly me experimenting at this point. I can't say that I actually improved by a lot. And if you can see my telemetry, if I go over it really quickly, I'm beginning to see some patterns. For instance, in the braking, you can see that I'm braking later and harder, whereas in my slower laps I'm braking sooner and softer. And the funny thing is that I'm also maintaining those brakes for longer, so I'm not even accelerating sooner on the exits. And then in these longer corners, some double right-handers that it has, it's a bit different. If I want to go fast in those corners, I actually should brake earlier and softer compared to what I'm doing in my slower lap, where I'm braking harder and later. But something's not entirely making sense to me for these corners. So I know in the hairpins that I have to brake harder and later, so that's something that I can work on. But for these faster corners, these double right-handers, I'm not exactly sure if braking earlier and softer is the way to go. It makes sense in terms of steering because I'm putting less force on the front wheels so they can have more rotation, but I just want to play around with it. I can't say it with 100% certainty, but it's just a thing that I want to try out. So yeah, I think you can see the theme with this video. I'm just experimenting. I'm not really focused so much on my consistency or anything like that, because more or less I'm consistent in the 143.2. But if I want to go lower, I think it's time for me to just play around with a couple of things to see what else can help me out to get closer to my goal lap. It might have to do with my driving, but until I play around with all these settings and make sure that I'm not missing out anything else, I think I should give it a chance before I go back to just practicing on my driving technique. But yeah, anyways, this is pretty much the video for today. This is just my update. Thank you so much to everybody who's been watching these videos and supporting me. I really appreciate it. And it's great to see the positive feedback that you guys are giving me in these comments. One last thing that I want to mention before ending the video is that in October, and I didn't mention it earlier, but in October, I went to do a 24-hour race with a Citroen C1 Cup. I am planning on making a video explaining how that race went. It was an awesome experience and I was really happy with my results. And it was also at Spa, which is like my favorite track, so that was really cool. But yeah, I'm just waiting for the footage because the team captured an onboard recording of the whole 24 hours in that car, so it's still not entirely finished. So as soon as I get the footage, I can start working on the video, and hopefully that's going to be soon and we won't have any problems. I just wanted to quickly let you know about that, and yeah, that's pretty much it.